Welcome! Well, I got something special for you today. This beautiful 2019 Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT. This one features a Whipple Supercharger kit. Looks like it was about $17,000 to install that Whipple Supercharger kit on this one. I'll show you all the info on that shortly. Normally this makes 475 horsepower or so stock. And then there is a higher performance Trackhawk, which is about 700 horsepower. I think it uses like the Hellcat engine in it. But actually with a Whipple Supercharger, looking at the dyno test, I think this actually might make more horsepower than the Trackhawk, if I'm reading it correctly. So I'll kind of go over it. We took this SRT Grand Cherokee in on trade. It's a local one-owner clean Carfax vehicle. Beautiful shape inside and out, 61,127 miles. Looks like it has pretty regular service history. All that information is in the Carfax report. You can tow right around 7,000 pounds of it. Obviously, it's not going to be as off-roady as a regular Grand Cherokee or Trailhawk Grand Cherokee, but it still has a decent amount of off-road prowess. Yet with amazing sport tune suspension, Brembo brakes, and that amazing amazing Hemi engine. This thing is a serious machine. And this one has a Borla exhaust, not for the faint of heart. This thing sounds pretty good. I'll actually rev it a little bit just so you can hear some of that amazing V8 music. You can see the lettering here, Whipple Supercharger. Really a handsome looking vehicle. Obviously you're going to have more aggressive performance wheel and tire package. You get these massive Brembo brakes, slotted rotors. And there's that lovely Borla exhaust system. I love that V8 gurgle. All right, I'll put this we'll put this camera down and rev the engine a little bit so you can hear some of that lovely Borla and Hemi V8 music. All right, that sounded pretty good from my perspective. I don't know how it sounded from yours. I guess we'll see shortly when we edit this video. But like I said, this thing is in beautiful shape inside and out. And obviously, if you're looking for a Grand Cherokee, SRT, or maybe if you're thinking about a Trackhawk, this one might be one to consider with this nice Whipple Supercharger. Obviously a big air intake. And there is an awesome Whipple Supercharger. If you live out of state, we have complimentary delivery to Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. We're obviously in Washington. If you're a little bit further away, we can't do complimentary shipping. But we can ship pretty much anywhere in the US. Just contact us and we'll get you a complimentary Carfax report. The nice thing about a vehicle like this, it kind of gives you that muscle car feel. This thing's a riot to drive, but being in a mid-sized SUV, it's also very practical for an everyday family vehicle. I'm sure your kids will get a kick getting dropped off at school in this thing. But yeah, it's a little bit more practical versus getting like a Challenger or a Charger or something like that, Hellcat or SRT. So let's take a look at some of the documentation. I'll show you what they did to this thing. All right, so we got some of the original documentation from this Whipple install here. Looks like you got some stickers if you want to throw them on there. I kind of like the cleaner look, just understated, you have a few Whipple logos here and there. It almost looks like it was stock. All right, so there is the Supercharger installation manual. I think this thing obviously was professionally installed. This has a whole list of everything they did and dated. Looks like they did it was done on March 3rd, 2020. And then we can take a look over here. We have the original invoice, look, $16,989.53. So we have the headers, Kooks long tube headers with connection pipes, the Whipple Supercharger, catback exhaust, install Whipple Supercharger, install Borla catback, exhaust system install long tube headers, HP tuner credits, HP tuner, there's a dyno tune, also it got tuned as well. And let's take a look at the dyno results. Your dyno jet research. So it looks like max power 640 horsepower and 553 pound-feet of torque. And if this is from the wheels, you know, it's probably comparable to what you'd probably get from the track cock, because, you know, manufacturers, they don't usually measure their horsepower at the wheels, they measure it at the crank, and usually that comes out to a higher amount. So if it's 640 horsepower at the wheels, if that's the case with this one, then it's probably, you know, close to 800 or more horsepower at the crank. I'm sure those of you who are a little bit more experienced with this stuff will correct me in the comments, but I think I'm on the right track. All right, so I think I owe you guys a little test drive in this thing, just to see how this thing drives and sounds once you get behind the wheel. Let's take it for a spin. All right, here we go. I've really just drove it across the street, that's it. Which is a couple hundred yards over here, and aside from parking lot speeds and, you know, 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour, I really haven't had a chance to really drive this thing, so I guess we're kind of discovering this thing together. I don't know what the acceleration is like. So there's track mode, there's auto mode. I'm going to put it in sport mode. I think with track mode that disables the traction stability control system, which I wouldn't want to do in a vehicle like this. Well, with all that horsepower, because even though this thing's all-wheel drive, this thing could probably get pretty squirrely, especially if you're not used to it. Love the sound of that Borla exhaust. I don't know how your neighbors will feel. I guess if you're kind of an early riser to work, you might not be a fan of your neighbors. You might be waking them up every time you start this thing up, because it's kind of loud, but it's a good kind of loud, not a bad kind of loud. All right, got some looks like a Japanese import cars getting dropped off. Pretty cool. But yeah, this thing has a nice ride. Going over bumps and stuff like that, even though the suspension is definitely firmer than a regular Grand Cherokee, it's still pretty nice and comfortable. Probably, I would say, even a little bit better ride probably than a comparable like Challenger, Charger, you know, SRT or Hellcat. Got these nice steering wheel paddle shifters if you want to take control of the gears. You got this nice carbon fiber trim, and I actually think it might be real carbon fiber. Looks convincingly real. Whoa! Look at this guy over here rolling coal. Poor UPS guys. It's like eco terrorism. All right, get a little opening. On sport mode, it holds out the gears a little bit longer than usual, just in case you're doing performance driving. So, wow, this thing is loud, but also very, very fast. No problem at all getting to around 60 miles per hour, maybe a little bit faster. Yeah, this thing's an absolute hoot. Going through a little construction zone here, so I'll slow down. I want to freak these guys out. Yeah, this thing's an absolute hoot to drive. You just mash on the throttle, kicks into the right gear, and you just take right off. Not very much hesitation. And let's see how it goes around corners. Really nice, not too much body roll. Obviously it is an SUV. Yeah, this thing is definitely a trip. I don't know how my driver's license would do if I own this vehicle for any sort of time. Vehicles like this have a tendency to kind of bring out the worst in you, or maybe the best in you, depending on your perspective. Oh, look at that old FJ Cruiser. Pretty nice. But if you have personal restraint, you know, obviously this is a vehicle that can be lots of fun, but if you have a hard time behaving, you could put your license in jeopardy, maybe more. But yeah, this thing sounds awesome. It definitely feels like it has, you know, close to 600 horsepower at the wheels. This thing takes right off. Really fun vehicle. Well, that little sums up our drive. It's a short one, unfortunately. Don't have much time today for a longer one. But thanks so much for joining me in this little spin in this 2019 Grand Cherokee SRT with a Whipple Supercharger.